Welcome to You're Making It Worse. I'm Eliot Glazer.
I'm Brent Sullivan.
And I'm H. Alan Scott.
We're here. We're queer.
Meh. Textual healing.
So LGBTQ plus U rights advocates. Of course, just to remind everyone, the U is for
You.
the unhinged community.
I thought you were doing LGBTQIA plus wrong.
No, not this time. So rights advocates are expressing concern about a recent Supreme Court, quote, shadow docket decision that blocked the enforcement of a new rule from the Biden administration protecting transgender students from discrimination in education. So the shadow docket refers to emergency appeals that reach the Supreme Court, but they don't receive full briefing or arguments. So the court is forced to make what's sort of deemed to be a rush decision. And they also don't always have to explain. These aren't full decisions, so they don't always have to explain their rationale in these decisions.
What is a shadow docket?
The shadow docket is literally emergency appeals that reach the Supreme Court for one reason or another, given certain parameters of now an issue of national importance, an issue when it comes to, for instance, the election.
Gore v. Bush was a shadow one, wasn't it? Yeah.
I do believe that received a full argument.
Did it?
Court,
okay.
But I think just given the importance of that particular case, but these the shadow docket it's a controversial thing because it's been overused. Some people argue in the last decade or two. It's a way to kind of expedite the normal appeals process, and a lot of people don't like it because, again, the justices are kind of making sort of lofty decisions without necessarily giving their full rationale. But in this instance, what the court did was that, let me take a step back. So the Biden administration created a rule protecting trans kids from discrimination in education. A number of conservative states sued, arguing that they were injured by the new definition of sex discrimination. But the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, decided for now that the rules would remain on hold until the lawsuits from the states are decided by court. So that is, the five conservative justices decided that for now, the Biden administration's rule protecting trans kids will not be in place. So it's a bad decision in particular for trans folks in the education context. The one conservative who joined the liberals was Gorsuch, who was the author of the Bostock Supreme Court case from 4 years ago that effectively outlawed work discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. So the reason why people are a little bit concerned about this case is because they feel like the Supreme Court is turning its back on the Bostock decision, potentially. And so they feel like some analysts feel like it doesn't bode well for future trans rights case. And there actually is a trans rights case that will be heard this term. The court will hear a legal challenge brought by the United States and Tennessee families against a 2023 Tennessee state law banning gender-affirming medical care for transgender youth.
Yeah.
Now, the one note of optimism I will strike: sometimes the justices will rule a certain way when a case reaches them via the shadow docket, but then when the case receives a full hearing in front of the court, sometimes they will change their minds. So it's not set in stone. And sometimes they're ruling on some more specific legal issues at play, as opposed to just it's not like the question was, do you like trans people? And they were saying yes or no. There's a lot of complex legal issues at play. But that said, it still wasn't a good day for trans folks at the court.
Well, I mean, my first reaction is it's not going to be a good day for a lot of marginalized people with the current court that we have.
Yeah,
I mean, this just highlights that because of the makeup of the current court as it sits right now, because of the conservative, majority that is on the Supreme Court, it doesn't look good for a lot of different people out there. And if you plan on the Supreme Court upholding past decisions. I mean, just look to Roe v. Wade for an example of them not upholding past decisions because of the makeup of the current Supreme Court. And so there's a lot to be worried about, not just with trans issues, but on a lot of other issues, voting rights issues, sort of, land issues. Like, there are lots of different issues that impact marginalized people, poor people, etc., that this current court is going to be making decisions on. And the only way around this is voting, voting
for senators,
There's
voting for
literally
presidents,
voting even in local elections. And I mean, literally, the only way to fix it, if you care so much, is to vote.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no way around it. That said, I will tell you the big exciting news, which is my dad and I are taking a trip to Washington D.C. this fall
I'm so excited for
weeks,
you.
and we are planning on going to the opening argument of the Supreme Court this year.
Oh, nice!
So I'm very excited, even though I don't agree with them always. I do revere and admire the institution.
That's exciting. You know what you need to do while you're there, other than many different things, but you need to go to past guest of this podcast, their museum, Capital Jewish Museum, and go say hello to Jonathan, who was on this podcast talking about. Yes, that's what you need to do. And
fun.
A plug for the Capital Jewish Museum. Go give it a visit.
This is Brent saying he's not going to go to the museum. Oh, that sounds very fun.
That sounds like fun. That sounds like fun.
I'm weirdly obsessed with the Postal Museum. There's a post office museum.
It's actually a good museum.
And I really want to go there when we're in
town.
Oh,
I'm so jealous. I love Washington, D.C.
I know. My dad and I love it too. And so I'm looking forward to it. Are you going to
take your dad to a gay bar?
I'm not going to do that.
Oh, damn.
I mean, I'm sure he would absolutely go. But
I want to go to a gay bar with your dad.
Well, we'll make that work. We can certainly bring him in precinct. That wouldn't be too sceney.
Oh my God! What if we brought your dad? I feel like we ended recording, but maybe not. Maybe we're still recording.
Sure.
We should bring your dad to a Sadie Pine show.
Oh, I'd love it.
I mean, your mom would have a great time.
She would absolutely have a wonderful time. There's no question about it.
And now we're done recording.
Not even joking.
We are joined today by one person who's been on the podcast before and a newbie. Welcome, Sarah Gabrielli. Hello, Sarah.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And let's Sarah, introduce your co-host, please. You do it. You do it. Because this is the third time we've been doing this and I fucked up every name.
You were going to kill it. No, yes. I know you were going to do it.
No, I'm doubting myself now.
I can do Sarah, it. I can do it.
Please. But do it with drama. Do it how I would do it.
This is a dear friend of mine. He is a micro-influencer.
Oh, that's true.
With narcissistic tendencies.
Not tendencies, qualities.
Qualities, but deep down, he's a lover, not a fighter. And that is Alvaro Chavez.
Wow.
Yay!
Wow.
Yes,
really low praise, honestly.
I mean,
low
well, if you're going to get, because you probably don't get that on the podcast. You guys host, obviously, Chicken Strip Podcast, a Roseanne rewatch podcast, which was fantastic. I've been on it. Eliot and Brent have not, which we should just keep it that way.
Yet.
I wonder if, is Roseanne, wait,
well, to be fair,
Roseanne up your alley?
Very important to you.
Yes.
I like Roseanne. I never watched it religiously, but I understand the value of it. Brent, it's Midwestern, so I feel like it might be more.
Sure. No, I wouldn't say that I was a monster Roseanne fan, and I don't remember. I don't remember any specific episodes, but it was on in syndication, and whenever it came on before dinner, 6 o'clock sharp. I always watched the reruns. I've probably seen most of the episodes.
I was watching live on air when it was like my weeks were like excited for in certain seasons for it to happen. Like I was definitely watching it in real time. But wait, what started the podcast? Like, where did it all come from?
I've had like a note in my phone, Roseanne podcast, for a really long time because I just think she's really interesting, and I think the show in combination with her is really interesting. If people don't know, the show is really the show and she was really progressive, and now she's known for being like Trumpy, MAGA, the complete other end of the political spectrum. Anyway, I've always found that really interesting. I've always loved the show, and Alvaro and I wanted to start a podcast together. And one night I sat him down and I was like, okay, we could do this rewatch. We're going to watch one serious episode, one funny episode. And he was sold from 2 episodes. So
yeah, I mean, I mean, as a newbie to Roseanne, like, how's the journey been for you?
Well, it all began with like a fundamental belief on my end that like my voice should be like broadcast and heard by everybody. So like, it did not begin with a love for Roseanne. I actually like struggled. I feel like you can see in Chicken Shirt, there's an arc where I sort of fall in love with the show. Mm-hmm. And so then at this point in the ball game, I would say that I've become a kind of a passionate Roseanne fan, but it did not start off that way. So it's been a roller coaster.
Interesting.
Well, it's actually been a pretty smooth arc.
Yeah.
Less of a roller coaster, more of a nice steady,
there was one dip.
In a narrative sense. Oh yeah, there was a dip. There's been a dip recently. I had a depressive episode and I like told her I couldn't do it anymore. But
fair.
We're still doing it now.
Yeah, you worked through it. You worked.
You guys worked through it.
I want to start with the obvious that I think a lot of people think of as soon as you say the name Roseanne, and at least nowadays, because of the election and because of politics, people don't initially go immediately to the sitcom. They immediately go to, wow, Roseanne is a nut job. And so I wanted to know, like, how did you two sort of combat the reputation that Roseanne's name has really in doing a podcast like this? Because it must be a constant part of it. She even followed you guys recently, right?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
It's like, it's an ever evolving. We're talking about it constantly, like how to handle that. I mean, I think like what we try to do, I have a background in journalism, so I'm like, we have to like know what we're talking about and kind of like, I don't know, just like kind of like honestly analyze the things that she does and says. And so they are often problematic, but we often like kind of discuss them. And I think like maybe where we might bother people is we like come at it with a lot of empathy and understanding of her, which I mean shouldn't be a bad thing, but like of course you can see where that might like feel.
Well, I mean, it's funny. Can I throw this in, Alan? Because probably a lot of our guests listeners remember this, maybe not, but like Roseanne was the original instigator when she my parents didn't like Roseanne because she was the one who sang the national anthem very famously at whatever, like a Yankee game, and she grabbed her crotch and she spit on the ground. She did a terrible job singing the song.
She did.
And like she, that was whenever that was, probably 92 or something. Tom Arnold was like in the wings of
always in the background.
Always in the background.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's interesting to see that she's still this instigator, but sort of from a different perspective at this point. But yeah, she's always kind of ruffled people's feathers, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and also her evolution is not unlike, frankly, a lot of Trump voters. I mean, a lot of people who were disillusioned by some of the left and some of sort of moderate policies, and they've gone in a direction that has become interesting, an interesting part of the conversation.
Lost their minds.
Well, I didn't say that, but yes,
I did.
Yeah. It can definitely like feel like they have, and in her case, she makes it particularly easy to sort of believe that she's lost her mind because she's like constantly saying like insane things still. And
really,
well, she was just recently in the video with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and
then she was in a video with she was with RFK. She did an interview with RFK, and to be honest, me and Sarah listened to most of that episode, and she kind of sounded like old Roseanne a little bit in the way that like a lot of us understand her. So
you're crazy.
That's
RFK.
I know, wait. And RFK is also insane.
No,
but
this is sorry. No.
I was saying insane is interesting. I think that's why Roseanne is really interesting. We have this segment of Chicken Shirt called Roseanne Watch, where we talk about Roseanne in 2024. 2020. Are we in 2020? Yeah, we're in 2020.
You got it.
Thank you. And that's kind of my favorite part of the episode sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Sarah?
Oh, wait, what was, I just think it's so interesting. So the reason that she followed us is because I clipped a couple of things from the RFK episode where she is like sounding really liberal. Like she's talking about incarceration of Black men and like forced prison labor, other things like that. And so I clipped a couple of those things and I just like said I like titled it Liberal Queen. And I didn't tag them because like I don't tag them when I'm like they're not gonna like it. Meaning her and her son, who's like her partner.
Her minion.
And they both, so he immediately liked it and commented on it like, I love that you posted this. She immediately liked it and followed us. And like, which was really exciting, but also so interesting to me that they like really liked that sentiment.
Yeah, that is strange.
But also, I think it is in line too with the evolution of a lot of people who have become Trump voters, in that even they don't know what they like or don't like, or what is good policy and what is or what the policy they should be following and what they shouldn't be. And so a lot of times it's just sort of like attention,
noise.
great,
Attention and noise.
All kind of boils down to attention and noise. Yeah, that's a good point. But let's get on to the show, Alan. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Let's get on to the show. I love Roseanne, the series. I love, and I when I was on you guys' podcast, I mean, I obviously gushed about. And Sarah, you messaged me like long before you even had the podcast about you were planning on doing the podcast. So I was anticipating this podcast for a long time.
Because you're such a public Roseanne lover. I was like, I know exactly who to talk to. About.
But it is complicated because it's hard for people to separate the two, and so. What I love that what you guys are doing with the podcast is sort of finding that lane to separate the two while at the same time acknowledging, the big elephant in the room. And so what do you love about, Sarah, I guess this is for you because you've been a longtime fan. What do you love about the original series? Like, what was it that like is that nostalgic hug that you need?
I think like something is just so real about it. And then when you have these people that are like extremely lovable for all of these reasons, like part of it is their progressivism. Like I'm talking about like the three mains, like Roseanne, Jackie, and Dan. I just think, and I've read everything that Roseanne's like ever said about the show. And like, she talks about like just always, if she could just get one left turn in the show or like, and like just totally like hates like canned anything. And like, I don't know, she just had this like commitment to realism and to like tell it, like doing something and like saying something important. And it's like always something different. I just think it's like quality.
I think she wrote something, this was years, even before Trump, into like in New York Magazine, where she was talking about the legacy of the show. And one of the things that stood out from her piece was that she talked about how Dan Connor, played by John Goodman from my home city of St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. If like he was the only representation of a like a deadbeat dad in a way. He wasn't a deadbeat dad as a father, but he couldn't provide for his family. He always failed at most of the jobs that he had. And so seeing that was so rare, but yet at the time in America, it was so like common in a lot of ways for a lot of families, this sort of struggle to survive and pay the bills. Like, so what about sort of the struggle of the family do you think like made the comedy richer? Alvaro, you want to take that one?
Yeah, you should go.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think like when you watch TV, a lot of it is aspirational, and like a lot of these sitcoms, I think, were also kind of aspirational. Like I mean, a lot of them were kind of middle class a little bit, but like something like the Brady Bunch, I feel like in the way that I haven't seen it. I shouldn't use it as an example, but like
I feel like you're right about whatever you were gonna say.
Well, it's just like just to your point, H. Allen, about like Dan failing all the time. It's like, well, yeah, like I also fail all the time, so it's kind of nice to watch a family that like they'll still make you laugh, but like you don't have to be like jealous of them. Like you obviously will because they're all happy and in love, and they're like a big happy family, which is like the nature of a sitcom, but a lot of
I was going to say there's so much representation of, I think speaking to what you're saying, Alan, there's representation of lower middle class families, but there was never any talk about a second mortgage, which I do remember that theme in one particular episode of what that meant And like, I mean, let's remember Married with Children. Ted Bundy was a shoe salesman, and he lived in a castle. Like, he lived in a big house with an upstairs, and like, it's like I had lots of friends who lived in houses a third of that size. It's like that's not really a real depiction of working class, but Roseanne had that.
And the set even of the show felt like purposely cluttered in a way that I don't think I really experienced on watching anything else, quite honestly. Just not unclean, just like cluttered and lived in a way.
Yeah, it felt real. Like, I mean, you looked at other shows that were on at the time, other family sitcoms, like big family sitcoms, like The Cosby Show, like Full House, like Family Matters. Everything was kind of perfect. You know what I mean?
Kind of.
I mean, in a way. I mean, Family Matters not so much, but like
I haven't seen any of these. Why am I talking?
but it had this sort of like perfect aura of like the family had it together. They were paying the bills. There was never any concern about the mortgage or anything like that. Whereas with Roseanne, I remember being in college and like whenever I got lonely, I would literally watch Roseanne because it like reminded me of my family. Like it gave me that sort of like it reminded me a lot of my parents in a way. Not that they were like my parents, but they had the same struggles as my parents. You know what I mean? Did any of you have that?
Mm-hmm. I did the same thing also.
Yeah.
The show also had such like queer appeal. And maybe that flew under the radar because we were too young to remember. But I do think that, like, especially in retrospect, and you guys can fill me in because I don't remember so much, but I know there was like Sandra Bernhard was on the show being gay. Wasn't Laurie Metcalf not gay, and then they revealed in the last final episode or something? Sorry.
I don't think they've gotten to that. Yeah, they haven't. Yeah, we can't ruin that. We can't ruin that.
Sorry.
Not the series finale.
He'll forget if we just keep. Let's just move forward.
No, but you're right. I mean, there were like, I mean, Sarah, you could probably speak to this.
There were queer appeal.
There were. I don't even remember.
There were many gay characters, right?
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing.
Well, no, we should talk about that.
Okay, but this started with Roseanne's sister Geraldine, who was her creative partner until she like gets with Tom, basically, and then they split up. But she's a lesbian. Also, Roseanne's brother's a lesbian, and
Roseanne's brother's a lesbian.
All of the men were like, "What?"
Also,
all the women were like, "Huh?"
Roseanne's brother is gay, and Geraldine writes in her book that they always planned for the Jackie character to be the first openly gay, like fully developed character on TV. They wanted her to have a spin-off, and then that kind of goes south because, I mean, that might have been impossible anyway, but like that never ends up happening. But instead they have the first lesbian kiss. They have the first reoccurring gay character, who's Roseanne's boss. They have the first gay marriage on TV. And we actually interviewed a Roseanne writer recently named Stan Zimmerman, who told us that every step of the way, he wrote the lesbian kiss episode, and he said that every step of the way the network said no. Like, they were like, you can't make this episode. Roseanne and Tom said make it anyway. Like, they kept writing it. Then they said you can't, film it. We're not like, and they're like, film it anyway. They said they're not going to air it. Roseanne and Tom said that they would like buy back the show and air it on HBO if they wouldn't air.
Wow.
Like, they just like put their feet down, and we didn't really get to the bottom of whether it was like because it was just like really good quality. I don't know. I think Roseanne cared about the mission more than anything else. I think that was what was going on.
That's the weird thing about that, is that like that particular episode is not particularly good. It's not a great episode of Roseanne. Like, it's not one that you go back to and you're like, that one. That's
Really?
the classic. But it is. I do think it's an important episode.
Who kisses?
Kisses. What was it? Hemingway.
So it's Sandra Bernhard's character's girlfriend kisses Roseanne when they're out.
So I feel like it's part of like the sapphic canon. Like some people do return to that episode, and honey, those people are lesbians.
Yeah.
Yeah. And eventually Sandra Bernhard's character's ongoing girlfriend was a famous actress from like back in the day. Oh God, what's her name?
I forget who it was.
Yeah, I'm gonna Google. But but in that episode, it was Mariel Hemingway that was the actress who did the kiss. And the reason why that was like such a big, what I think was so cool is that like, and Stan talked about that on you guys' podcast, in that the episode was so groundbreaking and it was a big episode, and Roseanne and Tom Arnold and all of them really stood their ground. But at the same time, Roseanne and Tom were also monsters to their staff. I was
going to say, as a writer, it's known for being the most chaotic writer's room in history, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, tell a little bit about what Stan talked about, but they like numbered the writers as they wouldn't have names.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was kind of a joke though, TBH. But not all the way through.
That was kind of my lesson from that. Is actually, I'm such a Roseanne apologist, but like
we sound like such Roseanne apologists, it's crazy.
But they didn't actually like call them by the numbers. Like they made them all take a shirt, and they were kind of like, it was a bit that they were gonna do that, but they didn't like memorize everyone's
They
number.
never wore it. No, Sarah, they never wore it again, I think.
I know, that's what I'm saying. And obviously they didn't learn the numbers.
Yeah, but that's a pretty nasty joke to make to a fresh group of writers.
Pretty awful.
It's pretty awful to maybe take away someone's name.
There's also a pretty famous story about that's like really made its way through writers' rooms, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember it exactly, but ultimately the big takeaway was that they went through so many writers, their door was constantly changing because of the tumult that Roseanne and Tom caused, that at a certain point somebody was pitching a storyline about Jackie, and one of the writers said, "Who Jackie?"
And
it became Who Jackie's story that
and it's become a classic story.
Not even Who's Jackie? Who Jackie?
And they wrote, also in New York I think it was New York Magazine, they did a whole deep dive in sort of figuring out who came up with that, who did that initially, like who's like the original.
The first fricate Stonewall, and like
it's a great story in New York Magazine.
Who Jackie?
Who Jackie?
Yeah,
it's probably someone.
Canon.
Yeah.
Sandra Bernhard's girlfriend and the longtime girlfriend was Morgan Fairchild, who
was right. And Martin Mull was in the show too. He was the gay boss. He just passed away too.
Leon,
who remember all the character names?
Yeah, I do. Of course I do. I mean, there are so many things about Roseanne that I think like even as a show, even when the series became bad, quote unquote, meaning in like the last seasons when it just when they won the lottery and when they went crazy. What do you stand? Oh, did I ruin something else? Did I?
No, it's Sarah. Are you freaking out? You don't have to freak out about the spoiler. I mean, listen.
Wait, haven't you watched it? Oh, you haven't
He's
watched
it? He's watching it for the first time.
Oh,
no.
Alvaro.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this guest appearance is really just ruining everything for him.
It's fine. It was
sitcoms are not really. I mean, I feel like with sitcoms, like the plot, like when they get bad, like I mean, the end of a sitcom is not. I don't know. It's not Game of Thrones, you know.
Yeah. True. Yeah. And to be fair, you didn't know that it was 2024 either. So like you might not remember everything.
I'm just like I got a lot of problems. That's true. Yeah. This is not gonna.
But when the show became towards the end, like this, even and then also now with the reboot that's ending this, I think it's like it was one of the most successful reboots of a series and the most tumultuous beginning of a reboot. But then of course, it now has gone on for like 4 or 5 seasons. Like it's still a big show on ABC. And like, what do you make of where the show went to?
Do you mean sort of like after the original run
like
ended?
In the later seasons?
like you know, you look at like a show like Seinfeld, The Golden Girls, and like those later years, people still remember them fondly. They're still like big parts. Whereas with Roseanne, when you watch it in syndication, it's mainly the first 5 seasons that people get excited about, and then the later seasons you kind of skip over a little bit, you know. So like, where do you take? What's your take on the later seasons? Because I low key love them.
I honestly do. I kind of eat them up still, like up until they win the lottery, and then
until that point,
and then, but that's just the last season. It's just I don't know.
Why would they win? Why would they make them win the lottery? Like,
it's confusing in a way that makes you feel like it's the one part of like regular network television where if you ever wanted to experience what it's like to do drugs without doing drugs, it would be watching that season of Roseanne.
Wait,
It is
really?
insane.
Yes, it is actually like a dream, and
That's
well,
so
I
interesting. I
won't.
wonder what was going on. Like,
Well, you'll find out when you get to that last episode, because it explains everything at that point, which
And then-
I think is one of the
Correct.
best last episodes.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Then what does the Connors pick up in like not an alternate universe, but just some
Literally.
things? Oh, it is okay. Like some
They're like-
things
Dan's
they're just like didn't happen.
I don't want to say
Yeah.
what happens, because I think
no,
Sarah's
say
gonna
it, say it.
Sarah
No,
will
she
explode.
dies.
No, don't say it, Alan. Don't say it.
Don't say
I didn't say
more.
anything.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm trying to
okay.
get content in like 5 years. But wait, what was the what was I just?
Well, I'm
gonna
just
say?
curious. What is do you have like a favorite? I mean, Alan and I, as Golden Girls aficionados, have our favorite episodes and our favorite
Yeah.
lines. This far along, do you have a favorite episode or a favorite moment?
Oh, yeah.
Something that just rings clear in your head as your favorite Roseanne moment. Either of you?
So also we just have the finale of season 1 left. So we
Oh,
have
okay.
season 1 under our belt.
Have you gotten
Yeah.
the tornado episode?
Yeah.
That's a good
we
one.
we weren't huge on that one. I think we were. I mean, Sarah, you don't. I think Sarah struggles with the episodes that are like event based. Like she hates when outside things happen to the Connors. Like
Yeah.
you would rather they be in like the kitchen the whole time, like exchanging dynamics.
Me
Like,
too.
like,
I just find that episode fat because in the audio, like Roseanne did some sort of description of like talking about that episode, saying that that's when she figured out how to act. Was that episode?
right.
Yeah.
We like don't necessarily agree, but
Well, she struggles with her acting sometimes, and then other times it's flying colors. You know.
Wait, so what episode stood out to you then from the first season?
I love the dead body one. I like the
that's a good
one
one.
where and then so something me and Sarah have found in season 1 is that like a big theme is like bureaucracy sucks, and like anything administrative is a pain, especially to like working class families that are whatever with like insurance shit on your phone, and like even like when this random guy dies in their like kitchen table, like the cop shows up and he like can't do anything about it for like 9 hours because the coroner is like taking a day off because XYZ, and like they can't move any of the prints or whatever. And then like it's fun to find those like tiny little themes and like preposterous sitcom shit that goes on.
Yeah.
So like dead body on the table, and then how it ties into everything else.
yeah,
So,
you really pulled the meaning out of that one. That was good.
Yeah.
What about you, Sarah? Which one stands out to you?
We just watched the first episode with her parents, which was really, it's like they
With
surprise visit them.
Academy Award winner Estelle Parsons.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brent loves it. He's
And
cracking
oh my
up.
gosh. Okay, wait. I have such cool trivia for you. The guy that do you know anything about John Randolph, the guy that plays the dad?
Well, he famously was in a
They're,
National
like,
Lampoon's
competing,
Christmas
right?
Vacation.
They're going
that's,
head to head.
That's like what modern audiences know him from, that he was in Christmas Vacation.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
he was like pursued in the 40s and 50s for communism, and he like testified in front of the House Un-American Activities Committee and was blackballed for like 15 years in Hollywood.
Wow.
And then his character in the episode like talks about commies. Anyway, it was cool.
Oh, interesting. Great.
And how much he hates commies. He talks about how
Yeah.
much he's like, I don't sleep in commie countries.
And maybe that's where Roseanne got her Trump thing. I
Wait.
don't know,
Yeah.
because he keeps talking about how he hates
Well,
communists.
I think, I don't know who said this earlier, but they hit the nail on the damn head where like Roseanne, well, it was with the story about Roseanne pushing for the lesbian kiss. I think she's kind of doing the same thing now in this like convoluted, confused way where like whatever, if someone tells her she can't do something, she has a sort of psychological,
Contrarian.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that can look really dark at a time where like,
Correct.
I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that makes 100% sense. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for being on the podcast. Where can people find the podcast, follow both of you? Where can they go?
You can find the podcast at Chicken Shirt Podcast on Instagram and TikTok, and you can find me. You can find me at SarahGab_Rielli.
And you can find me on Instagram. That's all I got for you. That's the only thing I own.
You're good on
Alvaro.
TikTok. You're good on TikTok.
You're good. Wait, share your TikTok
I was good 4
too.
years ago. Don't give me that. I'm past my prime. Just kidding. Well, probably. You can follow me on Instagram at Alvaro Chavez Silva.
Wonderful.
Nice.
Well, thank you
Thanks,
both
guys.
so much.
Thank you so much.
And another thing.
Well, I've been seeing a lot of guys online recently. Not a lot. I've seen a few guys very
Looking for gentlemen.
A few guys very openly post about going to Turkey to get hair plugs.
Oh yeah, I love it. I'm obsessed with those videos.
Yeah, it's like a real thing. I mean, it's obviously a real thing, and it looks like Turkey, in particular, Istanbul, has become a place where people are going for hair. Gay guys and men in general, I guess, are going for hair plug transplants.
Not just hair plug; it's huge for plastic surgery.
Plastic surgery in general, but obviously, there's a big contingent of guys going there to get hair plugs, and I even, I dated a guy who was like very close to going to Turkey to get hair plugs, and I was like, do it, I mean, listen.
The reason I thought this came up was because I remember you dated someone who shall remain nameless. We don't speak his name into existence anymore. But I remember, I remember you thinking it was a little crazier back then. I think you thought it was like a little wild that someone would fly to Turkey to get hair plugs.
Oh. It's not that I thought it was crazy. It's that I thought he was being, I thought he was being silly because I thought he was worrying too much about a problem that didn't exist. But then again,
you thought it was hot, but you also think like missing teeth is hot. So like,
missing teeth, gap teeth. I'm missing teeth. But I just thought he was hot without need. He's somebody who obviously worried a lot about balding, and that's the thing.
As most men do.
So many guys do. Many guys think of, and not just gay guys, like so many guys think a lot and worry a lot about receding hairlines and balding.
Yeah,
and
I do. I spend a lot of time thinking about it.
Yeah, so I wonder, would you guys ever do that? Would you ever travel if you were worried about hair loss, or I guess about hair loss? Would you go to a different country to get plugs or whatever?
I don't think I would do plugs. I don't care about that. To me, no. But you guys know.
Sorry, maybe am I confusing plugs and a transplant?
No, they're the same thing, I think. I mean, but yeah, I mean, the hair thing doesn't really, I mean, I've had friends that have done it. I've had friends that have had the hairline surgeries or whatever. And I had a friend years ago before Istanbul became the place of plastic surgery, they were going for their, gender confirmation surgery in Seoul. And I was like, could I just go and get a facelift? Like, could I? Like, I'll go recover with you. Like, so yes, the literally, if some strange man, if some strange man in Turkey was like, I will pay for you to come and get and they want to experiment with plastic surgery with me. Oh my God, sign me up! I will fly first class.
I'm at the point where I'm very, very anxious about my hairline has receded a little bit. I'm not to the point where I'm panicked, but I don't like it. And like every once, sometimes I give myself a haircut and I think I look fine. And other times I'm like, fuck, my hair has really thinned and it bothers me a lot. So I think I literally started this chat thinking I would never do this. And now I'm like, there's a world in which I could see myself doing it in like 5 or 10 years. What about you?
Yeah, what about you, Eliot? Would you do it?
I mean, it would be hilarious if Brent like went too far and got the hairline like down to here. right above his eyebrows, like Teresa Giudice.
Wait, would you go, Eliot?
I have to be honest. Look, I think receding hairlines are cute, and like balding is like, I like bald heads. I think it's very attractive.
On you, though.
On me, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean,
because like there's a big difference between what we find attractive and how we view ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would consider it, although I probably not. I mean, I guess you really do save so much money getting it done there versus here in the States.
Oh, of course. I mean, getting anything done outside of the United States is so much cheaper than. I mean, even I have friends going to Mexico for like Botox and dental work and stuff because it's just so much cheaper there. Like ridiculously cheaper. And it's the same, for the most part, if you go to a reputable places, it's the same quality of work. But
I think and when you say it when you put it that way, then I think, if I were to consider doing it, I would do it to save the money, but also make it a vacation.
Wait, but
you could get a bouffant on the other side. You would have two bouffants.
I have a question though. So like the thing, I don't necessarily worry about like losing my hair because I don't
you have a thick head of hair.
I don't have to worry about that. I mean, it was thicker and more like wavy before chemo, and then chemo fucked that up. But I mean, I have my hair is fine. I'm not the hair is whatever. I did have some moments where like I had like from stress, I had lost like patches where I lost and stuff, and that was stressful. But I don't like my gray hair. My gray hair is something that like I really am not a fan of, and it bothers me. And I have a lot of it. Like I have a lot of gray hair.
Never noticed.
Like if I didn't color my hair, which I do.
Oh, you color your hair. Oh.
I color my hair. Yeah. If I didn't color my hair, I would have like pretty much all of the sides would be gray, and a good portion of the top.
Like me.
But no, I'm probably grayer than you are. Like I'm I started turning gray when I was like, in my late 20s. Which was just like 2 years ago. And so I've been coloring my hair ever since. And I mean, I go through phases of like, sometimes I'll do less of a color and I'll have some grays come in. I'm in a situation where like now I'm going darker and I want my hair to be darker. And so like I color it. But do you guys worry about gray hair at all?
I don't want a thick head of gray hair, but I don't mind a little bit. I certainly have a few.
You do not have. You have jet black Grecian hair. It's not gray at all. Nobody would ever look at you and ever even say salt and pepper. It's black.
Yeah, I haven't reached the salt and pepper. So the other thing I was going to say is I think the reason why I am so anxious about hair is because I had always been told when I was a kid, I had very thick hair. And
same.
my dad basically didn't start losing his hair until his late 70s.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I just always was like, oh, I'm always going to have a very thick, robust head of hair. And obviously,
it's on your mom's side, though, right? Isn't it on your mom's side? Isn't that how they say?
Side, your mother's father is supposed to be the like, signifier of your hair loss. My maternal grandfather lost his hair in his 20s. Like he was like bald, fully bald. So clearly that's not.
I think genetics is a little more complicated than just pointing at one person. But I literally overheard that conversation on the plane home, and I was like, yeah, maybe it just doesn't work.
I don't mind. I mean, I don't mind salt and pepper. I mean, I could try to color in these like spots on my beard or like the side, but I kind of like it. I think it's interesting and kind of distinguished, and it feels like age appropriate, I guess, in a way that I don't mind it.
Yeah.
If it were a full head, I mean, I'm fully like, it's like brown, but if it were,
what about when you start getting that gray pubic hair?
Not looking forward to that. Not looking forward to that.
Hard dose of reality there.
What would your aunt say? Brent, what would your Aunt Ramona say about something she heard on today's podcast?
Eliot should wear a t-shirt that says, I spread my legs for missing teeth.
My Aunt Joanne would say, if Brent's so worried about his receding hairline, he's just put a yarmulke on the front.
Definitely what she would say.
Front yarmulke. How about Aunt Anne?
Aunt Anne would say, I have never had to worry about going gray. I've been a natural blonde since I was 23. Honestly, you don't know what's happening under there. Like, it could be anything.
No
she wears a wig?
I think maybe. I don't even know.
Good for her. I would imagine she'd wear a wig.
Yeah, probably. I love that.
Well, thank you for listening. Good night and good luck.
Stupid bit.
Blows out my ears.